Hi there, my name is Shawnee Cannon, and I spoke to you briefly at Ed Week, and I told you that I would send you a video. And so thanks for that opportunity. I'm glad that I just get a couple of moments to make some comments that I wanted to share with you. And so here is the phases that a circle goes through in a ward, and comes from observation. We started using the circle in January of this year with the new curriculum, and I am actually a gospel doctrine teacher, and I use the circle in gospel doctrine. I'm in the Relief Society room, and the Relief Society sisters have to put the chairs in a circle anyway, so we just went ahead and did it for gospel doctrine. I love it. I love it. I have been teaching for years, and the difference that it makes is really noticeable. So let's just talk about the phases that a circle goes through. When we first introduced it in January, we got an adverse reaction from people. And this is kind of how it goes. They walk into the room, they see the chairs in a circle, and they're like, oh my goodness, there's an unidentified foreign object in the Relief Society room with all these blinking eyes, run away, run away. And you're always going to get people who have a really hard time with change. It just takes them a while. They're not used to it. We've been doing with the chairs facing straight ahead and looking at a single teacher. We've been doing that for what? Almost a couple of centuries probably or something, but it's been a long, long time, and so this is really new. And so from some people, you're going to get this reaction at first. And then the next phase, what they do is we all sit in a circle, but the teacher, one person, still does all of the talking, or most of it, you know. It's like we're all looking at this one person, and so it's not a lot different than the traditional class setup. But then, after about 5 or 6 months in our ward, this started to happen. All of a sudden, people are like getting used to being in that circle, and it's not so different anymore. And then they start talking to each other across the circle, and they're like engaging in these conversations, and people are noticing each other and interacting with each other and engaging with each other, and the teacher is not doing so much of the talking. And that's what happens. And I've noticed we had this one teacher who just could not do the circle, and she insisted, and this was just like a month or two ago, she insisted that the chairs be put back in the rows, and the level of energy and the engagement and the participation immediately went way down. And I ended up being on the back row, just the way they set the chairs, and I ended up being on the back row, and I looked down my row, and almost every single person was on their electronics, and they were completely zoned out. They were not engaged. And that's what happens. That's what happens. And with the traditional setup. And then, but what happened in our ward, we started getting these interactions going, and like today in Gospel Doctrine, there was a lot of them. And I can tell you, the circle has made our Gospel Doctrine class feel really different. It's like we really are sitting down and having a conversation with each other. The retention rate goes up, the people's interest goes way up. It's noticeable. And this is a cross section of all kinds of personalities, ages, you know, the two different genders. We're getting a really positive result all the way across. Our attendance is up. So this has been a really positive experience. And then the last, and we sometimes get to this last one, we're getting there. Today was a really good day for this, but people are actually like talking to each other, having a conversation like they would in the foyer with their friends. They're like really offering up and volunteering stuff about themselves, their insights, and then it's going back and forth. And so we're vacillating between these two stages, but it took us a while to get there. We did have people who were not real happy about the circle, and then we did have some time for people to get used to it and to kind of break away from that old model where the teacher does most of the discussing. And I just wanted to add a couple of things, and that is I've lived on the West Coast most of my life. I've only been in Salt Lake for 3 years. It'll be 3 years next month. And so I can just tell you, in most places, 99% of the church, they live in a place or a situation where sometimes the only time you see another Mormon is at church on Sunday. And because of the way we're set up, we don't really talk to each other a lot. We don't really see each other. We go, we sit in a room, we all face forward, we listen to a single speaker. We don't have a lot of time to get from one class to the next or set up or whatever. And you can go for the 3-hour block and hardly have any interaction, any real personal communication or interaction at all. I talked to my roommate at BYU Ed Week, and she said, she's up in Brigham City, and she said, with the old way, she said, it can be lonely. You can be around all these people, and it can be lonely. And it's because the setup is not geared towards people facing each other, noticing each other, observing each other, interacting each other. This circle really brings that in big time. It is like, I just thought it was so inspired. So I was really surprised that anyone was considering not emphasizing it or treating it as if it was not a good system. And I understand in the strongholds along the Wasatch Front that you get groups that are so big that your circles are too big and you have to shout at each other. But I would just like try to offer up, most of us don't experience that. And this circle is about the only time we experience other LDS people, and in a way that's meaningful. And what it has brought to our ward, it has brought more of a sense of belonging. You're like sitting around looking at everybody. It feels like you're at a party, but a really polite one on the Sabbath day. But it just feels more like there's more of a social element, and that element is missing. And people don't feel like they belong, and people don't feel like they're interacting and engaging with other Mormons when they're at church. The more outgoing ones do. If you're more outgoing, you probably do experience that. But a lot of people are introverted, and a lot of people are unsure of themselves at church. And so this really is a great equalizer. It also encourages the discussion based lessons that the teacher or that the church wants. The church wants us to be talking and engaging and discussing more. This circle psychologically sets you up for that. Everybody sitting straight ahead and looking at a single teacher standing up psychologically sets you up for having that person doing most of the talking. And so I just want to share these insights with you, and I just want you to know, even though you're saying, oh, well, we're going to give everybody a choice, the moment you withdraw support and emphasis on the circle, it will die. It's just simply going to die. It's too new. It has people who don't like change, that are adverse to it, and people just don't do well unless with new things like this, unless they're highly encouraged. So I would hope that you would talk about the circle, list the benefits of why it's working so well. It's working so well for the self-reliance people sitting in circles, talking to each other. It's working so well for BYU's new experimentation with education, where they're forming groups and having them face each other and talk to each other about their secular classes. The circle is letting people look at each other, observe each other. It is making a big difference in how church feels and what the experience is when you walk out of the room. We now feel like we're much more of a group. So I hope that you will give the circle more of a chance. Thank you.